So let me get this straight. In a matter of days, the Trump administration went from continuing its purge of military leaders.
Yeah, the Pentagon spokesman just announced Navy Secretary John Fillon is departing the administration effective immediately.
To then drafting in none other than Kid Rock to address the troops on the Strait of Hormuz. Yeah, it's not a headline from The Onion, by the way.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says he went for a ride with Kid Rock in an Army attack helicopter just weeks after an Apache helicopter crew was briefly suspended for a flyby at the musician's house. A Pentagon spokesman says Monday's flights at a Virginia military base were part of an America 250 anniversary event. Hegseth personally shut down the investigation into the previous flight at Kid Rock's house in Tennessee, which saw the Apache helicopter hovering in the air as the musician saluted. Kid Rock is an outspoken supporter of President Trump.
But you are not serious people.
It's getting more difficult each day to tell what is real and what is parody regarding this administration. On the one side, you have senior military leaders being fired, command structures being reshuffled, and instability at the top becoming the norm during an active conflict, by the way. Yeah, it's still going on despite the topic pivoting to the need for a ballroom after the White House Correspondents' Dinner, because only in America can you have school shooting after school shooting be met with thoughts, prayers, and the president saying that
it's horrible to see that happening. That's just horrible. So surprising to see it here. But we'll have to get over it.
But when a madman is apprehended trying to enter the Correspondents' Dinner, there's no question we must have a $400 million ballroom for security.
I'm working on legislation to ensure that we are getting the ballroom funded. It's obviously a national security element to that.
This new ballroom that he's been trying to construct as a way to move ahead and protect himself and others during these big events. Is this something you would support authorizing in light of what happened on Saturday?
No. You know, the president, let's be very clear here. The president he demolished the East Wing of the White House, a historic jewel of the American people, and he started to build this ballroom long before any incident. He also promised the American people that this was going to be built with private dollars. And so the idea that they are now trying to change the rationale for this in retrospect doesn't quite add up.
Meanwhile, on the other hand, a celebrity is flying in US Army attack helicopters on what critics have called taxpayer-funded spectacles, brought in to address the troops. Yeah, not to perform like he did at that horrendous alternative halftime show, but he actually spoke to the troops.
Jesse, do we need the ballroom?
I never understood the opposition to the ballroom. I mean, all women love ballrooms, and what do guys care? It's free. The argument that it's a lavish vanity project, maybe, but it's mostly for national security. They're building a nerve center for the Defense Intelligence Agency underneath, and you can't get a drone through, a missile through. It's the safest place on planet Earth. We can have not only White House Correspondents' Dinners, we can have Kid Rock concerts in there.
And by the way, it's not the first time that Kid Rock has been entertained by the US military on taxpayer dime. Remember when Army aviators in March flew the same type of helicopters near his home, and the Army initially said that it would investigate the March flights, which involved crews from the 101st Airborne Division at Fort Campbell. But of course, Commander-in-Chief Hegseth quickly intervened and shut down the inquiry. An Army Apache helicopter is estimated to cost around $7,000 per hour to operate. This was according to an Army official who spoke on condition of anonymity to the Associated Press. And this obviously ruffled the feathers of many. Countless critics raised a basic question here. Why are high-cost military assets being used this way at this moment in time, especially when the US is engaged in active conflict?
It is quite obvious that the Americans have absolutely no coherent strategy whatsoever. And the fundamental problem with these kinds of conflicts is always the same. It is not enough to simply get yourself in, you must also figure out how to get yourself out again. We witnessed that reality quite painfully in Afghanistan over the course of 20 long years. We saw the exact same thing happen in Iraq. So this entire situation is As I have mentioned previously, at the very least it was ill-considered, and I really do not see at this present moment which one you mean. What strategic exit the Americans are choosing now, especially since the Iranians are obviously negotiating very skillfully, or for that matter, very skillfully not negotiating, and making the Americans travel to Islamabad and then letting them leave again empty-handed. A whole nation is being humiliated there. By the Iranian leadership, especially by these so-called revolutionary guards. As Europeans, we have also extended an offer stating that we are prepared to assist in ensuring that the Strait of Hormuz is reopened, just as soon as these hostilities have finally come to an end. Furthermore, we have offered to dispatch specialized minesweepers from Germany to clear that vital strait of all its mines. After all, it has quite obviously been mined, at least in some significant part. Well, we could certainly do something about that, but first of all, the fighting has to come to a complete and total stop. And right now, I honestly do not see how that is even remotely achievable in the short term.
But honestly, this makes sense why this administration is doing this. It perfectly encompasses their entire outlook regarding the military. They pay lip service. It's a perfect smokescreen, a toy they can use to entertain their wealthy friends while they, behind the scenes, enact complete chaos. The administration has fired countless senior generals, removed top military leadership, reshuffled command during wartime.
That Hegseth has carried out inside the Pentagon since he took office. Hegseth has fired more than a dozen senior military officers over the last year. In fact, he's almost completely remade the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Just two officials remain from before President Trump took office. Marine Corps Commandant General Eric Smith and Chief of Space Operations General B. Chance Saltzman. Now, you might have noticed if you look at that photo, Hegseth's version of the Joint Chiefs, those are entirely white men, despite the fact that as of 2024, nearly 33% of active duty service members are of color and nearly 18% are women. Hegseth made it quite clear that that type of representation in the top ranks does not matter to him.
The era of DEI is gone at the Defense Department, and we need the best and brightest. Physical standards must be high and gender neutral. If women can make it, excellent. If not, it is what it is. We're reviving the warrior ethos. We're eliminating the distractions and the debris. No more DEI.
Two of the first leaders Hegseth let go were former Joint Chiefs Chair General C.Q. Brown, the second black officer to hold that post, and Chief of Naval Operations Lisa Franchetti, the first woman to lead the U.S. Navy. Just last week, the New York Times reported that in an extraordinarily rare move, Hegseth was actively blocking the promotions of 4 Army officers. Officials saying 2 of the officers are black, 2 of them are women. Parnell defended the promotion process to the New York Times as apolitical and unbiased, unquote. The New York Times reports that Army Secretary Dan Driscoll repeatedly refused to let Hegseth strike those officers' names from the promotion list. Officials told the Times that Driscoll took heat from Hegseth's chief of staff, the controversial Ricky Berea, for promoting Major General Antoinette Gant to command the military district of Washington. The Times reporting, quote, Mr. Berea told Mr. Driscoll that President Trump would not want to stand next to a black female officer at military events, the official said, unquote. Berea denies that story. Driscoll is someone Hegseth perceives as a threat, sources tell CNN. Unsurprisingly, he has worked closely with the now retired General Randy George. Hegseth's firing sprees targeting women, targeting people of color, or even just those he feels personally threatened by. This all comes as the U.S. is weighing a further escalation in the already unpopular war in Iran, a ground invasion that could potentially risk the lives of thousands of troops, which only 11% of U.S. adults polled by CNN support. In that same poll, incidentally, Secretary Hegseth himself is registering at a 35% approval rating, with 65% of the American people disapproving. And now, without the guidance of tenured military officials who have served for decades honorably, that guidance, because Secretary Hegseth is either dismissed or hamstrung for reasons that remain unclear to even top military officers, now the Trump administration is scrambling to prove to the American people that there is a clear plan for the war in Iran and that it's worth the costs of thousands of U.S. troops that they're putting in harm's way.
During a war that has saw an enormous amount of conscientious objection claims. They do this to project this idea of patriotism, have people talking about this instead of the mass exodus or why that Rupert Murdoch's Wall Street Journal also reported that Trump's being kept out of the Situation Room when things get tough.
Well in his future endeavors. It was not immediately clear from this post if he resigned or was fired, but Fox News has learned in the last few moments that he was fired. He had a very close relationship, apparently, with Donald Trump Jr. and just hosted a bridal shower for his fiancée this past weekend in Palm Beach. Fillon was confirmed by the Senate just over a year ago. Undersecretary Hung Kao is to assume the role of acting secretary. This marks the 34th military officer that Secretary Hegseth has fired since taking over the agency, Brett.
Yeah, John Fallon, at Navy Secretary there, and we'll try to get some more details. Jackie, thank you.
Because for service members also, this should raise a question. I mean, what is being prioritized here? Operational readiness or political alignment and optics? And what the situation reflects instead is there's clearly mixed signals going on, conflicting priorities and blurred lines between military function and political messaging or favors for friends. I mean, this isn't Make-A-Wish Foundation, it's the US military, which countless former military leaders have brought up. Posed a simple question during the middle of a conflict. What exactly are we prioritizing here?
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.